Please welcome to the stage Clara Tsai, Vice Chairman of BSE Global and Governor of the New York Liberty, and Candace Parker, President of Adidas Women's Basketball and Athlete Advisor at Avenue Capital, for conversation with Bloomberg's Jason Kelly.
All right. So you heard a little bit of mention of sports. We're going to talk some serious sports. And we're going to start by talking about something that's literally happening tomorrow, back where I live and back where Clara is headed. New York Liberty playing in the WNBA Finals. Congratulations. We have some fans here.
Good, thank you.
You played in a few finals.
Just a couple. Just a couple.
Won three with three different teams. Is that right? Or you won with three different teams is probably a better way to put it. Do you have a prediction?
I mean, put me on the spot here. No, I think New York is playing the best basketball in the WNBA all season, so for sure.
All right, so I want to talk about the business of the WNBA because this is an absolutely fascinating moment to talk about this. Something big is happening. It's undeniable. You've both seen it from different perspectives. I do want to take a quick show of hands. Who's been to a WNBA game in this room? Who wants to go to a WNBA? Okay, good answer. All right. So you've got a bigger total addressable market here. Clara, I want to start with you. Back in the day, not that long ago, about 2,000 people average showing up. I have the numbers here. Your average attendance this year, I believe I have this right, 12,730. That is higher than the WNBA average of 9,807. What happened? What was the key thing that happened to drive that number to almost 6 times higher?
What happened to the New York Liberty? Well, first of all, we saw great numbers last year, and we had already broken a lot of business records last year in terms of viewership and attendance, and even gate receipts, which is obviously what we all want from a business standpoint. Fortunately, that success and all the infrastructure that we had built to support that allowed us to be ready for this year. And this year, it's undeniable that everybody got almost like a significant increase in all of the important metrics.
Right.
And the key, of course, is to just sustain that growth.
Right. We're going to talk about sustaining it. Before we get to that, Candace, I have to ask you, when you see these sorts of numbers, when you're no longer playing, do you channel my 6-year-old who in this case would say, "Bro, are you kidding me?" How does it make you feel that you were there, you were doing it, and now the numbers are coming?
It's so interesting because I feel like it was that steady growth and that steady persistence. Everybody looks at the growth of these numbers, but to be honest with you, I think it was opportunity. If you think about it, before New York's ownership changed, they were playing at Westchester. I mean, it was not a desirable place to play. The NCAA game was not on ABC. It was on ESPN, and it was buried not during prime time. And then it was kind of like this effect of, okay, we're going to put the NCAA game on ABC for the first time. And then it was like, wow, they shattered the numbers of, the past. And so it's almost like little by little it was the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we saw the skyrocket. And it was honestly franchises being ready for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was franchises like New York, franchises like the Las Vegas Aces that were ready with a practice facility, with player experience. And so I think the numbers are reflective to a lot of different things, television, all of that stuff, 2020 and all of the social justice and, the bubble and the center stage that we were on during that time. But I think it was also a combination of just franchises being ready to sustain the growth. And Indiana played in a barn. They played at Butler the year before Kaylin got there, So it's just I think this growth is remarkable, but I think it was like the steady Eddie at the beginning.
And I want to say, I agree. I think the fact that mainstream media, college basketball, women's basketball has been popular for a while, but the fact that mainstream media covered it and social media covered it and the virality of social media, that's what really allowed viewers to actually follow players from college into the WNBA. And that is really what the league was looking for and what it needed. But it was really the fact that ESPN and actually reporters like Robin Roberts and Gayle King actually went to cover Caitlin when she was in college. And so she did become a household name before she even went into the draft. And that really took that mainstream fan that follows Iowa right into the WNBA.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I have to add this one thing.
Please.
It's an event. I broadcast TNT for the NBA, right? Game number 3 in November, as much as I love James Harden, I love LeBron, sometimes it's not the most entertaining, right? Like, let's just be honest, it's not. It's buried in November, and it's a number 5 game, 5th game of the season. It's an event, though. You go there, there's a show, there's a pregame show, there's a jumbotron, and I think you think about Ellie.
Right.
Oh,
You think about the mascot Ellie and what that has become. You think about it in Vegas, it became a halftime show. It became the place to be. It became an event. And I think that is the growth that was needed, and that was the entertainment that was needed alongside the WNBA.
So you're pointing to something which feels like it's critical to this entire conversation. And I had the great opportunity last week with my partner, Alex Rodriguez, to tape an episode of The Deal with Candace Parker. That's what we call a deep tease. It's coming out later this season. Tune in wherever you get your podcast, Bloomberg Television, etc. But one of the things you said, which you guys are both alluding to, is this notion that the investment is now meeting the product. And so, Clara, I wonder, you were one of the people literally making those investments. What was the key investment, as you look back, that you feel like you made in the Liberty to make this possible, to meet the product?
Right. Well, the boldest move was to move the team to Barclays Center at a time when we didn't know where our fans were, because by that point the fans didn't know where we were. So there were years when we were investing heavily into the performance team and nutrition, and sort of we had this idea that we wanted to treat the players like elite professional athletes. Okay, so that requires a serious upgrade. But the first thing we did was move them to Barclays. That was difficult because we only had like 2,000 people in an arena that actually sits 18,000. That first year in 2020, we had a record of 2-20. Now, luckily, that year, then, as a result of that kind of performance, we had the #1 draft pick. And that was when we were able to reset our roster. And we were fortunate that another generational talent, Sabrina Ionescu, the star point guard from University of Oregon, we drafted her, and she became the player that we were going to build around and support. Right? And so the investment was bringing them there, investing in the locker room. We built a state-of-the-art locker room. We invested in the nutrition performance team. And the idea was to be able to attract the top talent. And then when there became mobility within the league due to the last CBA negotiations, Breanna Stewart was available. I went to Turkey to recruit her, and basically just wanted to chat with her, get to know her and her wife and Ruby and their daughter, and just talk about what our hopes and aspirations were for the league. And I wanted her to feel welcome into our organization. And that was pivotal because she came, and through the trade and the draft and free agency, we were able to put together a team of all-stars.
Right.
And that's when we began to win. And winning is everything. Because you can have the wall-to-wall entertainment, you can have Ellie, you can have the Timeless Torches, and they are fabulous. I have to thank my team for creating an incredible...
The Timeless Torches, can you explain who the Timeless Torches are for this audience?
The Timeless Torches are our ageless dance troupe.
Please, after this, Google
favorite.
Timeless Torches.
Yeah.
They are ageless, and they are amazing.
Yeah. And that's the great thing, by the way, about being in New York, right, is we got great dancers because they're, this is just part of our culture. And, I have to say, our team really created an experience that's very culturally relevant, for the league, but also for New York City.
Yeah. So Candace, hearing everything that Clara is saying, you have made no secret about the fact you want to own a WNBA team and an NBA team. That's on your vision board. You're also the president of women's basketball at Adidas. So how do you seize this moment as a business person? Where are the investments that you make to take advantage of all this?
Well, it's so interesting because years ago there weren't sports funds, and now there are so many that exist. And I think that where women's basketball is right now, we're seeing it as an investment, and I think we've seen it in years past where people have looked at it as a support, as a charity. I think people like Clara have come in and proven its value and proven that it can make money if you invest in the correct and the right way. And so for me, I think it's a unique position to be able to say that you have played, but also you understand the power of building a culture and a power of building something that's sustainable and the player experience behind everything. We look at the NBA as kind of the blueprint, and those leagues didn't really take off until probably around 30. The WNBA is 28 years young, but we've seen the power of player experience.
Right.
And players elevate their games when that player experience is good. And so for me, during this time, I think it's just unique opportunities that will come about. I have an amazing mentor and business partner in Mark Lazary, who owned an NBA team, owned the Bucks, and then sold. So it's a unique position to be able to be a partner with somebody that has done what a lot of people dream of doing and has done something that and wants to do it again. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And fair to say, you guys are all in on women's sports. I mean, Avenue just bought the North Carolina Courage,
yes,
correct, in the NWSL, part of that deal. So, Clara, as we think about what happens next, we're Bloomberg after all. We love dollar figures and valuations. We're sitting here in a city where recently an investor group led by Bob Iger, really led by Willow Bay, and Bob Iger, valued at $250 million, the highest valuation ever for a women's sports team. How do valuations go from here? How soon do we see a $1 billion women's sports franchise, do you think?
Well, I think I'm on record for saying that in 10 years, I think the New York Liberty can be the first $1 billion women's sports franchise.
All right, write it down. What gets you there? Like, what do you need to do to hit that goal?
Viewership. It's basically broadening our reach and accelerating fandom. And that's, in attendance, but it's also viewership. And right now, the viewership has obviously improved a lot. Revenues are lagging. And so I think it's because, people want to see that we can, look at that. Look, just within 1 year, it grew so fast, right? So I think that the reason the revenues are lagging are because people want to make sure that that's a sustainable curve, or that it stays at that level and ideally continues to grow. I mean, we are growing at a different rate than all the other, the other major sports leagues.
Right.
So, but the fact that the viewership has grown, and that to me, it's very clear that it's going to catch up, because in terms of viewership, we're maybe 30% viewership of the NBA at this point, but we're only, even with the new deal, 4% of the media deal.
Right.
So there's a lot of room there, and I'm counting on the viewership continuing to rise, just because I think the talent it's going to explode next year, by the way, and then keep going. But the talent coming up, and just the training kids have, and the I mean, we have people playing until their late 30s, 40s. I mean, people know how to take care of their bodies. I mean, I think there's really going to be a lot of talent, and the game is just going to get better and better. And it's very physical. That's the thing. When I bring new people, they're amazed at how physical and competitive the games are.
She knows.
Yeah, I know. But she knows that people are surprised, right, who haven't gone.
Yeah.
And they're just like, it's been this way, by the way. It's been dope a long time.
Yeah.
But people, but now they're coming because of Ellie or because they've heard, right? But that's the thing.
That's Ellie, just FYI, if you guys don't know.
Yeah, if anybody was wondering who Ellie is.
That's the show.
By the way, that's my favorite quote of the night so far.
Okay.
It's been dope a long time.
Yeah, it's been.
Clara Tsai.
Yes.
Are you going to use that one?
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop. It's been dope a long time. We're done. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
So what do you? I mean, you want to be an owner, and again, like you've got this job now as an executive. So what do you think needs to happen to make this sustainable?
Well, I think now we are seeing people that are investing in women's sports that have never been in this landscape before, which I think that there's power in that. If we're able to, as a league, continue to have the reach and to have the investment, like you said, you spoke about leadership. I think it's also continuing to understand the value of women in general. The purchasing power, you look at now how the tunnel fits have become a runway. Right? Now it's fashion.
Yeah.
Did you see our off-white jackets?
I did. I saw that. I wanted to hit you up and ask you for one. But you know, it's so interesting because I had the benefit of sitting with one of the founders of Skims, and he said, now we're looking at a landscape where during our parents' generation, they were actresses and actors that were the superstars and the megastars. And now we're into a generation where it's the sports stars that are having that same impact and that, you know, that cultural touch and input and things like that within what drives culture. And so I think it's continuing to capitalize on that and lean into it as a league. And just, like you said, let's just not make this a charity. Let's really invest and invest in the right way. And I think we have owners now that are coming into the league that are willing to do that.
But that's the main thing that's changed, though.
That's new.
That is new because when we invested, it was definitely a distressed asset. I would call it undeniably a distressed asset, and it was like a charitable endeavor. But now, so much wealth is starting. Private equity is coming in. I mean, it is a business story. Yeah. And the valuations reflect that, as you just mentioned, right? So that's what's really changed. It is definitely a business story.
And so what does the league need to do? I mean, what do you need to do as the current owners to sort of encourage to make it possible for Candace to come in with a group, for other like-minded people to come in?
For Candace to invest, you mean? To be able to invest in a team? Okay, well, I would say you need to invest smartly, and you need to invest with a great team. Okay, you've started with Mark Lazary. There are others out there. And you don't even have to be investing in women's sports right now. I mean, you should just invest in good businesses. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I love the story of Junior Bridgman.
Yeah.
He's a minority investor a significant minority investment in the Milwaukee Bucks. But he is, I mean, do you know his story? Mm-hmm. Okay. So just really quickly, he played for the Bucks for, I think, 10 seasons, and his jersey's retired there, so it hangs up in Fiserv. And he was really interesting. I think he scored double digits for 8 consecutive seasons as a bench player. And so he holds a lot of records for points coming off the bench. But when he retired, he started to invest in restaurants. And he became the CEO of Bridgman Foods, and they invested in 420 Wendy's and Chili's restaurants. And then in 2017, he bought the Heartland Coca-Cola bottling company. He became an independent bottler of Coca-Cola. And obviously, he made a nice sum to be able to take a significant stake, because now the valuations, especially for an NBA team, are through the roof.
And so to that point, I mean, are you seeing, Candace, I mean, you are unique in your talent and your ambition to some extent, and yet you're also, it feels like, part of a generation of athletes who are taking this entirely much more seriously from a younger, you started investing, you started doing business. What was the catalyst for you?
Well, I know, just looking at the landscape now, I mean, NIL would have, I look back at NIL, and I wish we had that back in our day.
Yeah.
You're seeing athletes become a business. And, I mean, I'm from Chicagoland, and you look at Caleb Williams, and he has his own venture capital firm that he opened. I mean, you're seeing athletes younger and younger, 15, 16 years old, with the ability to be at cap tables.
Yeah.
And so I think, for me personally, I think it's just capitalizing on the relationships, which I think is a lot of what business is. It's the learning element of things. It's figuring out where others have made mistakes and where you can possibly avoid those things. And I think it's just a lot of listening, to be honest with you. I think that's a important thing to learn. But I also want to say that in years past, I think people were hesitant to approach women to be at cap tables, especially as women athletes. Didn't think that we could write the checks or we could bring value. And I think that's turning around now. And you're seeing more people and more, especially female athletes. I sat on a panel last week with Alex Morgan, who has a number of businesses coming from soccer. So I think now the doors are opening up, and I think the table is getting a little bit bigger, and we just need to take advantage of it and continue to, try to open up more doors for the next.
Final word to you, Clara. What's the advice you give your players? I would imagine they come to you with some of these same questions. What's the advice you give them in terms of building into being the next Candace Parker or the next Clara Tsai?
Learn the business, as particularly, a lot of them want equity in, eventually, right, people want to have an ownership stake. Sue Bird was the face of Seattle Storm, which made them who they are, right? And they gave her a little piece. So I think, understanding the business is really important. Right now, what I tell the players, well, I always say, and I got this from actually Michael Strahan's interview with you guys when he said, you can have a great career, but you actually need a championship. So, I think we're all focused, I think for them in their careers, winning a championship, they have to.
Just win.
Just like,
what?
Going into the finals tomorrow.
Let's
win.
Let's
win. But and I think you have to be able to say you're a champion.
Yeah.
And so but this team thing is with women and our team. They're so determined, and I don't really have to say very much.
Right.
They're super motivated.
They got it.
But I think for them, they want at this stage, it's sponsorships. We want to just continue to try to drive opportunities to them.
All right. Well, go Liberty.
Okay, thank you.
Don't tell Alex Rodriguez I said go Liberty, because he has the links. But we're going to say in this room, go Liberty. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.